All right. So the 2025 NFL draft, the first round of the 2025 NFL draft is now officially in the books. Josh Simmons was just selected number 32 overall by the Kansas City Chiefs. Yes, I did change hoodies. If you did see my Jay Barron reaction, it is absolutely freezing in my house right now, and I do not feel like going up to the heater and warming things up. So I changed to a bigger hoodie, but that is not important whatsoever. The first round has just concluded, as I mentioned, and it was a hell of a night. A real hell of a night. A lot of really fun surprises. This draft really, once again, reminded me that us, even as kind of freelance analyzers, really don't know what goes on in front offices' minds. They definitely, at times, at least, at certain times, at other times, we have similar ideas, but at certain times have very different ideas and very different ways at evaluating this talent, where they should be picked, and even in the case of trading up or trading down for people, how much value they should truly give up. Because there were some big time surprises in this draft. In the draft, a lot of people felt that each pick was pretty solid in which each team was in which each team was going to go after a specific person. The draft brought a lot of surprises, a lot more trades than I really thought, especially early on, which we'll get to in just a second. But a lot of very surprise trades and a lot of guys that are surprisingly still available. You see it to the left in this ESPN article, Will Johnson and Shedeur Sanders, still the top two guys on the draft board. Was definitely surprised, especially by Will Johnson slipping all the way down to the second round, which we will also get to in a second. But before we go ahead and get started with the full first round draft analysis, I just want to tell you guys that if you guys are watching this on YouTube, please feel free to subscribe, leave a like, and comment down below, and share with your friends. And if you haven't already, come on, man, what are you doing? Go ahead and follow us on all social medias, that being TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. On TikTok today, had my Broncos first round reactions to the Denver Broncos first round 20th overall pick. And so that's some of the stuff that you'll go ahead and see on the TikTok. Just a little bit of shorter clips, but that clip you can obviously also check out on this channel. Would definitely encourage you to. It was definitely a very surprising reaction, which I know is also fun to watch. So without further ado, I'm not going to waste any more time. Not even going to get into any more of the intro music, whatever. We're just going to hop straight into this because there's going to be a lot to talk about. So starting at the top of the order with the number one overall pick of the Tennessee Titans. This is probably the pick that I'm going to spend the least amount of time on because it was pretty much set in stone. It was going to be Cam Ward. We've known this for weeks. The Titans really liked a couple of the workouts that they had with him. They liked his arm talent. They liked some of his poise in the pocket. They like his big play potential and his high ceiling. Him, as well as a lot of other teams, had him rating as the top quarterback in this draft. Brian Callahan now gets his quarterback of the future, who he hopes can now plug into his offense. Go alongside Tony Pollard in the backfield, J.C. Latham on the edge at offensive tackle, and, of course, Calvin Ridley on the outside. And he's hoping that he can fully transform this Tennessee Titans offense. Good to see Cam Ward get this. Very excited to see what he is able to do, especially in a division that right now is really wide open with some of the injuries and surprise trades that Houston has had, with some of the forthcomings and unfortunate downfalls that Jacksonville has had in recent years. And, of course, you also have the – why am I blanking? It's late, guys. I'm so sorry. It's 10 p.m. I'm really tired. You have the Titans, the Texans, the Jags, and the Colts, who have also run into some obstacles with their starting quarterback, Anthony Richardson. So definitely very wide open for Tennessee to come in and grab this division by the reins. And Cam Ward might just be that guy, if he can live up to his ceiling, to be the top quarterback in this draft and make big-time plays in Tennessee. Then you move to the big first surprise of the night, and one that, to be honest, I hadn't heard a lot about. I did not hear a lot about Jacksonville really being interested in trading up for this spot. And so when they did trade up, I was really interested. Of course, Travis Hunter was the first person that came to mind. But I was also thinking to myself, man, are they really worried about New England potentially grabbing Ashton Jeanty? Could this potentially be Ashton Jeanty at number 2? Do they really want to bolster their pass rush that much and go out and get Abdul Carter? What are they thinking here? And the trade that they gave, I mean, they gave up a lot for this number 2 overall pick. Go ahead and zoom this over to Adam Schefter's X account. So the Cleveland Browns ended up trading the number 2 overall pick, a 4th round pick, and a 6th round pick in this year's draft. But the Jags, they end up giving up their first round pick, number 5 overall, their 2nd and 4th round pick, as well as next year's first round pick. Now, obviously, what Jacksonville is thinking here is hopefully Travis Hunter and the impact that he can bring on both sides of the ball can hopefully get that first round pick at least out of the top 10. And so it definitely decreases the value a little bit. I wouldn't say it was a terrible trade, especially for a guy in Travis Hunter who I fully believe was the top player in this draft, and a guy who is as generational as him, who is going to be planning to potentially play on both sides of the ball. I definitely don't think that this is a terrible price tag for it. Is the 2026 first round pick maybe a little too much, especially only to get up 3 spots? Maybe, but in a draft that was very top heavy, in a draft that didn't have really a lot of generational big time talent, to get the best guy in the draft, I don't think that it was terrible value. I don't think that it was an amazing trade for Jacksonville, but I definitely don't think that I think that they're teetering on the edge of giving up a little bit too much. But of course, they went ahead with Travis Hunter, somebody who, in my opinion, is now going to be used likely as a full-time wide receiver. And then, we'll go ahead and see what happens. He did do an interview following being drafted, and he's been told by Jacksonville that they're going to allow him to do what he does. So assuming now here that he is going to be playing on both sides of the ball. And I really think that this was the big thing for Jacksonville here. It is clear by now that they need a big-time spark. They need to get Trevor Lawrence a number 1 option at receiver to play alongside Brian Thomas Jr., but at the same time, they also needed to bolster this defense. It was the worst rushing defense in the league. It was the 2nd worst passing defense in the league. It totaled for the worst defense overall in this league. And so when you have an opportunity like this, a very rare opportunity with 1 pick to be able to upgrade the offense and the defense, that is big time. Is Hunter going to be able to hold up? I doubt it. I just think that the NFL demands too much of you physically. But the dude has surprised us before. Definitely think that he can surprise us again. And I definitely think that he has great talent on both sides. Offensively, I definitely think because of his smaller size, he could potentially play more in the slot. But he definitely has solid speed for the position. He does really well getting on the outside, running streak routes, but he can also play over the middle in certain drag route situations as well. Really, really great hands, knows how to pick his spots. And then on the other side, very, very same thing. Very solid press man corner, in my opinion. Somebody who gets up right at the line, plays very aggressive, very, very great field IQ, puts himself in position always to be able to make the right play for the turnover, and is actually one of the rare cornerbacks that can actually take advantage of that because he has such great hands. So in this position, you get a homegrown Florida boy. You get to put him on both sides of the ball. He was announced as both a wide receiver cornerback, which was definitely cool to see. It's historic. It's definitely big time historic to see. Really like the pick for Jacksonville here. Puts your team from potentially bottom of your division to likely competing for that top spot, because Hunter is just definitely that special of a player. And hopefully this can activate Trevor Lawrence's confidence a little bit and get him going with some more options. And we'll have to see also what goes on with Travis Etienne in that backfield, because there has been some confidence from Jacksonville lost in him recently. So with Travis Hunter, I didn't do this with Cam Ward, so I apologize. Cam Ward, I'm going to go ahead and grade him an A- for the pick. I just feel certainly because while it was the biggest position of need, while they did get the top player at that position, I don't feel like Cam Ward at least warrants a number 1 overall selection. I think if any other team, if this draft order had been filed any other way, he likely would have been at the end of a top 10 pick, if not a top 15 pick. That's just kind of his value that I feel for me. His overall ranking on ESPN ended up being number 8. But it was a big-time need. He's the best player at that position. Big-time arm, big play potential. Going to give him an A- here. For Hunter, very similar thing. I'm going to give it an A just because Jacksonville had to give up so much for Travis Hunter in the end. So going to go ahead, going to give T. Hunt an A, but like this pick for Jacksonville. Think it improves them a lot. Then we're going to move to the number 3 overall pick, which was the New York Giants in Abdul Carter. Again, another pick that was very, very set in stone here. They were basically going to pick the guy who falls to them out of Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. Carter, I mean, in my opinion, the second best player in this draft. Very, very versatile edge rusher. Reminds me a lot of Michael Parsons to be able to play a lot within the inside, to be able to play on the edge, to be able to play on the defensive line, to be able to play on the interior defensive line. Does a really great job with his hands. Has a very great quick initial first step, and initial quickness on him to be able to move guys out of the way. This is another guy that I could just see potentially being a generational type player. And I think for the Giants, for a defense that has lost some pieces in recent years with guys like Dalvin Tomlinson leaving, for a defense and for a team that has a head coach and a general manager that is clinging on to a job here, this is definitely the guy that is going to be able to bolster that defense, bolster that win total, and now it potentially makes Kayvon Thibodeaux expendable, and we'll have to see how that goes, especially in the next few days as the draft rolls on. So Abdul Carter, A for me here. Then you go for Will Campbell at number 4 with the New England Patriots. Again, got this right again for me. So far, I'm going to call myself 4 for 4 because I did have Travis Hunter going to the Cleveland Browns at 2. So I started off a little bit hot here. But again, these top picks were definitely set in stone. Will Campbell, just thought that it was the most safe pick for the Patriots. Definitely entertained Genty a little bit, but just felt that Genty was more of a want than a need. The offensive line for the Patriots was definitely a big-time need for them. And now they've gotten themselves in a position where they're starting to build a little bit solid of an offensive line. They have Will Campbell. They have Morgan Moses. They have Cole Strange at that right guard position, Garrett Bradbury in the middle. And especially with Will Campbell having those shorter arms, that allows him to have some versatility. I've mentioned it so many times, to have some versatility to either be on the outside of the offensive tackle, move on the inside, and allow the Patriots to really move around that offensive line and put out their best 5 offensive linemen. And now having Will Campbell as the anchor of this offensive line, having Ramondre Stevenson still in the backfield, and still some solid running backs still in the second round that they could pick from, having Stephon Diggs on the outside as the number 1 type receiver, the defensive additions that they made, man, the Patriots have really, really, really made some solid additions. They've really pushed themselves forward as real-time young contenders in this league, and they're hoping that some of the additions that they have made can begin to advance Drake May quicker along so that he can become that franchise quarterback for them. So Campbell, really solid in pass protection, has a really, really powerful strength moving forward and advancing the ball, pancaking opposing defenders. In my opinion, one of, if not the best offensive tackle in the draft. I think it was kind of between him and Armand Membu for that top spot. Going to go ahead and give this an A as well. Have no complaints whatsoever about the top 4 picks. Then you move to number 5. Again, I'm going to say that I got this right because I had Mason Graham going number 5 to the Jacksonville Jaguars, but Cleveland ends up taking him at number 5, and this was pretty surprising for me. But this kind of shows me that Cleveland was more locked into improving themselves defensively than they were offensively, and I think that that's really where they feel like they are going to win games this year. Whether they do have Joe Flacco, Deshaun Watson, or whoever the quarterback is that they draft with the 33rd overall pick, whether that's Shedeur Sanders or whether that's Jalen Milroe, whoever they have at starting quarterback, I think that they understand that right away the offense is just not going to be as explosive as they really want it to be. So they're really going to have to pull back and anchor on this defense. And Mason Graham being alongside Myles Garrett, that is a terrifying duo, especially in a division where you need to get after these top-heavy quarterbacks like Joe Burrow, like a mobile quarterback with Lamar Jackson. You also have potentially Shedeur Sanders, Jalen Milroe, Tyler Shaw, Kyle McCord, a young rookie quarterback, or even Aaron Rodgers coming into Pittsburgh. You need to be able to pressure these talented quarterbacks. And having Graham next to Myles Garrett, you also have a guy like Denzel Ward in that secondary defending the number 1 overall receiver. I think that Cleveland is just saying, look, our offense is not going to blow anyone away. There's still some solid talent at receiver within this second round that we could potentially go after. There's still some quarterback depth that we could potentially go after to fill in that need. Graham for the talent here at number 5, really solid talent, playing alongside your biggest strengths, and it makes that defensive line an absolute monster of a time to deal with. Again, going to give this an A- just because I simply saw things like wide receiver and quarterback more of a need. But at this value at number 5, are you really going to trust Shedeur here? It was very clear that Cleveland just did not trust Shedeur within the top 2 or top 5 picks. So I think that they got the guy that they wanted. You get the guy at his right value. I think it was a good pick there with an A. Moving on to number 6, you have Ashton Genty going to the Las Vegas Raiders. Again, It was pretty much set in stone. There were some talks of Jacksonville potentially picking Genty at 5, and that's why I was potentially thinking about Genty going top 2. But Pete Carroll now gets his new Marshawn Lynch, a dude who I think is very, very comparable to Marshawn Lynch, to be honest, with the power that Genty has behind him, with his ability to break through 3 or 4 tackles on his run, his legs still continuing to churn while he's driving through defenders. He does a really, really solid job at exploding through the first hole that he sees. And once he's able to pick up his speed, he is honestly unstoppable. He might not have the elite speed that you maybe see from guys like TreVeyon Henderson within this draft, but it's solid enough speed that allows him to really drive through his defenders. And with his power, with his weight, he does a really great job of that. And now making that offense much more diverse, you allow Pete Carroll to feel a lot more comfortable within his offense, because he's had this all his coaching career, whether it was in USC with Lendell White and Reggie Bush, whether it was in Seattle with Marshawn Lynch. These are the type of guys that he plays off of. He likes to play off the run. He can kind of ease off of using Geno Smith as much as possible and kind of play to Geno Smith's strengths a little bit more, which is making those big-time plays on the outside. Give the ball to Genty. Feed him. You have a second-year center in Jackson Powers-Johnson who's going to want to run the ball down people's throats. And for my Denver Broncos, this is not a good sign at all for the division rival to go here. Like Genty, think that he is a blue-chip prospect in this draft. Think that 6 is about the right value for him. Liked him as a pick. Again, going to give the Raiders for an A, and that hurts me as a Broncos fan. Then you go with another great pick. Again, I'm just going to say it, 7 for 7 here so far for me, as you have Armand Membou going 7th to the New York Jets. Again, it just was the pick that made the most sense. The Jets putting this alongside Olu Fashanu, I've compared it a lot to the Los Angeles Chargers situations last year when picking Joe Alt to pair with Rashawn Slater. You have to give Justin Fields the best chance to be able to succeed. Armand Membou definitely does that. Somebody who is very agile, who is able to get out past the line of scrimmage and absolutely blow over people. He has big-time power, big-time agility. Also sits at 6'4", so also has some potential to slide in at guard as well. And with Olu Fashanu having that versatility as well, you have 2 guys that, maybe if they don't work on the outside as franchise offensive tackles, maybe you can move into the inside and be an agile guard duo, an all-pro guard duo on the inside as well. So having that versatility is always nice. You're going to be able to play behind these 2 guys on the outside zone runs with Breece Hall and his speed. You have Garrett Wilson, Allen Lazard. You're starting to build a pretty good offense here, and one that I believe that Justin Fields should be able to succeed with. And if he doesn't, he's going to be in real trouble when it comes to starting opportunities within the NFL going forward. Do look for the Jets to go more on the defensive side within the mid-rounds. I think that's what Aaron Glenn really wants to focus on. But this was their biggest need. I think that they addressed it with one of, if not the top guy in this draft. Number 7, again, I cannot complain about this pick whatsoever for New York. Going to give this an A. Then you go with, in my opinion, was the first surprise pick of the night, even though it really wasn't a surprise when it came to really need. And that was Tetairoa McMillan at number 8 for the Carolina Panthers. Like the pick, really like the pick. Give Bryce Young a number 1 weapon. Give him an X on that outside. That's definitely what Tetairoa McMillan does the best. He reminds me a lot of Jamar Chase, man. I mean, the dude just does such a really great job at getting off of press coverage, off of his release, getting on that outside and just winning jump balls each and every single time. And him paired with, even though he's older, Adam Thielen, Xavier Legette, who I know had a little bit of a rougher season, but might be able to play more to his strengths within that slot with some of his speed. That is only going to grow Bryce Young's confidence even more, and especially having a deep threat, going to be able to mix in some packages over the middle, potentially mixing in the running game a little bit. The Panthers offense now is slowly beginning to form an identity, and especially on the defense side, having guys like Derrick Brown, you have guys like those that you can begin to really formulate your defense, so you can kind of hold off, especially with the huge amount of edge rushers that are still on the board in this draft. And I think that's another thing that teams like Carolina really looked at, is you still have, Darius Alexander. You still have guys like Donovan Ezeuruku. You still have top-heavy pass rushers within this draft. You can definitely afford to go out and get a pass rusher in the second round. That is a potential first-round talent. So Tetairoa McMillan, Like the pick here. I know that there's a little bit of concern about a video that came out a couple of weeks ago about him not really liking watching film, and because of that, there was a couple of people that had him slipping, but for most people, he was still the number one overall consensus, number one wide receiver in this draft outside of Travis Hunter. And I think the number 8 is more than good value for him for his talent level. Again, can't complain about this. I had Jalen Walker, potentially his athleticism, giving him an identity on defense, but I'm going to give this an A because him pairing with Bryce Young should be fireworks on that vertical passing game. Then you have Kelvin Banks at number 9. And I felt that this was the first kind of shaky pick within the draft. And I felt that was going to be it with New Orleans because they don't really have a true number 1 need. Like, they're kind of okay everywhere within their team. They kind of just needed a real standout guy. And I think that at number 9, they just did not like taking Dart, Shedeur, Milroe, Shao, any of those guys. They just did not feel comfortable with the value here. So they said, why not go out and get one of the best tackles in this draft as well? And I think that that's perfect. I think that you can definitely improve that, especially wanting to bring back the running game, especially in the inside zone runs with Alvin Kamara going up the middle. Kelvin Banks Jr. can definitely execute that. I think that he's the first guy that is more of the stereotypical tackle type with his bigger size. Still has some shorter arms, so definitely still can play within the inside, but is the first guy that has the stereotypical tackle size. Also is the guy who probably is good at both rush and pass protecting. Not saying that Membu and Will Campbell are weak at any, but Kelvin Banks is really the more balanced guy within this. Does a really, really great job at latching on his hands and keeping the guys at bay. I mean, in the conference that he was in with the Texas Longhorns, he was facing big-time pass rusher after big-time pass rusher. So definitely has some really, really great experience. That the hands are really, really huge for him. So he gets a lot of power behind those hands, able to really push people back. And whether it's Spencer Rattler or Derek Carr, really just giving those guys as much time as they can, especially in an offense with the guys like Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, who like to really formulate those routes on the outside, formulate those deeper routes. That's going to take time, so they're definitely going to need more time within that passing offense. Can't really complain about this with Kelvin Banks. Again, a little bit of scarcity because of his shorter arms, but also, again, versatility of moving on the inside. Can't really complain about it. Like him as a talent. Going to give this an A- for the New Orleans Saints. You then move to the Chicago Bears at number 10. And I think the Bears were kind of like, okay, what the heck do we do? Because Genty was off the board. Mason Graham was off the board. Kelvin Banks, Will Campbell, Armand Membu were all off the board. I think that Chicago really planned to either trade up, to number 6 or number 5, or to have multiple options at number 10. And they got to number 10, and they were like, where the heck did all of our options go? It was clear that not really any team wanted to invest in a corner early on within this draft that wasn't Travis Hunter. All of the offensive tackles were off the board. Mason Graham was off the board, like I just mentioned. They don't really need a receiver. And like I said, running back is potentially a need. I still don't feel like it's potentially a need because, DeAndre Swift was still an 1,000-yard rusher this year. He still was a really solid running back. And so having somebody who's not Ashton Genty picked at number 10 just feels like kind of a reach for me. So they went out and they went and filled what, in my opinion, was a need, which was tight end. Cole Kmet was okay last year. He wasn't great. He wasn't very involved with the offense very much. And they go out and get Colston Loveland. Not my number 1 overall tight end on the board, and definitely had Loveland going a little bit farther in the draft within the 20s, 20, 21, 22, within that range a little bit. But Loveland, really solid athlete, is more of kind of your shorter route type of guy within that 3 to 7 yard range with it, but is a really, really solid route running, does really good on the crosses, evading into man coverage. He's a guy that can make some plays. And so you look at this Bears offense now, have completely revamped their offensive line, and there's still some okay offensive linemen that they could potentially get in the second round. Like, who's still on the board? I know that Josh Simmons got picked. I'm going to go to PFF real quick for you guys so that I can just see the remaining tackles. Let's go ahead and run this faux mock draft. Start draft. Oh, it's not even going to show me. But I do know that there's still a couple of solid offensive linemen on the board. So Definitely could take a pick there. Still some great pass rushers as well. But they completely revamped the offensive line. They put Colston Loveland and Cole Kmet as a 2 tight end set. You have DJ Moore, you have Romo Dunze, you have DeAndre Swift in the backfield. I mean, this is, in my opinion, the best young offense in the league. And if they cannot get things going, I don't know, especially with Ben Johnson. He has so many weapons to work with now. Man. And there's still also some possibility for them to get a solid back within the second or third round as well. We know how Ben Johnson likes to work with his 2 running back set with guys like Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Still could potentially get that in round number 2 as well. Man, this Bears team is diverse. They are solid across the board, and it is going to be fun to watch Ben Johnson run with this. I'm going to give it a B+, just simply because I had Loveland as my number 2 tight end, but still really great tight end, number 2 tight end in the class. 6'6", 248 pounds, physical. Like the pick here for the Bears. Then you move to the San Francisco 49ers at number 11. Felt that this was really solid Jalen Walker range, potentially, and him falling to 11 really surprised me. They end up going with the other guy on the opposite end, and that was Mykel Williams. Definitely don't mind the pick. Williams is an absolute dog. There's a reason he was on the Georgia Bulldogs, obviously. The dude is very, very active with his hands. He is a very, very big power rusher. He just drives through every single offensive tackle that he goes against. He has very prototypical size, as you can see, 6'5", 260. The dude is a beast. And he also, has some really solid quickness that he can run with as well. Does a couple of finesse moves to be able to get in between the tackle and the guard into some of those gaps to flood those inside zone runs. And is also a guy, as you can see, that ESPN cited right here, has shown some great toughness and leadership abilities with playing most of 2024 with an ankle injury. Now, is he a guy that is going to be amazing at, let's say, playing in coverage against faster tight ends? Probably not. But is that the role that he's likely going to play in San Francisco? Probably not as well. I see guys like Fred Warner definitely playing that role. And in this case, San Francisco really just needed to rebuild this defense, rebuild a new identity. And again, it was clear that nobody felt safe with the cornerback options this early in the draft. And they still, again, you have opportunities to go out and get somebody like a Will Johnson, somebody who I still believe can be a number 1 overall cornerback in this league. You still have the potential for that. Siobhan Reval still available. Benjamin Morrison still available. There's still a lot of really great cornerbacks out there. Trey Amos is still available. So San Francisco can still continue to build this within the secondary. They're not fully gone. And getting a beast like Mykel Williams to be next to a guy like Nick Bosa, to be next to a guy like Fred Warner, again, they're slowly rebuilding and making a scary, scary linebacking core. Do not count them out just yet in San Francisco. Going to give this an A. Liked Williams. Maybe a little bit too early, but definitely cannot complain. Then you go with Tyler Booker at number 12, and I said it in my Jahdae Barron reaction. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to raise both my hands up. I was the first person to call this for the last week. I have been looking on Tankathon, CBS mock drafts. I've been looking on ESPN. Nobody had Tyler Booker going to the Cowboys, except for some people who maybe switched up and did their final mock drafts like a day ago. I had Tyler Booker going in the first round originally to the Seattle Seahawks. I then moved them up to the Dallas Cowboys at number 12 for my final mock draft, which, by the way, was pretty off, especially at the end of the draft. I kind of expected that just simply because I did it so early. I filmed that video last Friday, literally a week before this draft happened. So I kind of expected a lot of things can change within that week time span. Next year, definitely going to do it a lot closer to the draft so that I can know a little bit more about what's going on and I can get it a lot more accurate. But I was accurate on this pick. It just made the most sense. And I credit Jerry Jones for making a pick like this because it's not the sexiest pick, right? A lot of fans might want you to go after a speedster like Matthew Golden. A lot of fans might want you to go after somebody like Amarion Hampton. Make this that you call it the sexy pick, the flashy pick, the flashy upgrades. Inside offensive line really isn't, especially in an inside offensive line class that wasn't very deep. But Booker is the best out of all of them. Has versatility to play both guard and center. Has really, really solid footwork. Is another dude that is just a bulldozer, can get some real push within the run game, especially on those interior nose tackles, is able to match up really solid against them at 321 pounds. And especially with the team in Dallas, who's already going to be struggling already with only having Javonte Williams within that backfield running up the middle. This is a guy that is going to be able to be the powerhouse within that middle. You need to be able to protect Dak Prescott with Zach Martin retiring, with a lot of other guys, you losing from your what used to be a Hall of Fame type offensive line a couple of years ago, with guys like Tyron Smith, Travis Frederick, Zach Martin, La'el Collins. With you losing all of those guys and really only being relegated to guys like Tyler Guyton and Tyler Smith, you now have potentially 3 out of 5 offensive linemen. That's not bad. That's a start, and that is definitely things you can continue. Is he perfectly polished? No. But he has really great size for the guard position, really great length. He's very mobile. I like this pick for Dallas. Kudos to Jerry Jones. Like I said, I predicted it, so I'm going to go ahead and give it an A+. I felt like this was their biggest need. It protects Dak, and it improves that run game, which already was going to be pretty one-dimensional to start out the season. Then you go with the Miami Dolphins at 13. Again, interesting pick here with Kenneth Grant. Wouldn't have been my choice personally, but I think that offensive line was so long gone by now. I mean, the best interior offensive linemen was off the board. Banks, Membu, and Campbell, all the top 3 tackles were off the board. If you look after that, the next offensive lineman didn't go until 18, and even Gray Zabel is viewed more as an offensive guard than a tackle. And I did feel like tackle was a bigger need for Miami in this draft. You look down a little bit more, you got like Josh Connerly Jr. and Josh Simmons that went at both 29 and 32. So Donovan Jackson went at 24, but even he is looked at more as an offensive guard. So tackle wasn't the greatest at this point, didn't have as much depth, especially with Josh Simmons suffering an injury. So they go ahead and they grab Kenneth Grant. And I honestly did not realize how barren Miami's defensive line depth was. Like, after losing Christian Wilkins, they are in a really tough spot with this defensive line. And I honestly think that they picked the perfect guy in Kenneth Grant to be able to fill that role like Christian Wilkins. He's very similar, where he's maybe a little bit smaller but a little bit beefy at 6'4", 331, but is a guy that possesses both amazing power and really solid speed. Dude has a very quick first step. He does a really great job of using his speed to be in pursuit of both quarterbacks and running backs running within the outside, but is also a dude that could get really low with his shoulders, dig into those pads, and just power through whatever center or guard he's going with. So you revamp up this defensive line right here. Yes, I understand that Tua's health is a really big time concern, but again, there are some offensive tackles still to go in this draft. Ariante Irsay is still available, and he's potentially a guy that you could get in round 3. So there's still opportunities to upgrade this offensive line. I think the value here is pretty solid for Kenneth Grant as well. Again, maybe a little bit later for him, maybe around 18 or 19, but because of how much lack of depth they had at this area, I really can't complain with it. I'm going to go ahead and give this an A- for Miami. Giving out a lot of A's so far, and it's not going to change because the Indianapolis Colts went ahead and got Tyler Warren at 14. Again, it was just the obvious pick. It was the pick that made the most sense. It was the biggest hole for Indy offensively at that tight end area. And when you have quarterbacks who are limited at this point in their careers, like Anthony Richardson, like Daniel Jones, when you're still trying to develop somebody like an Anthony Richardson and trying to turn things around for him early on in his career, you need to surround him with as much talent as possible. And now, again, you have Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, you have Tyler Warren at tight end. You could play behind the run game with guys like Quinn Nelson and Jonathan Taylor on the inside zone runs. The Anthony Richardson really can't fail. I mean, he needs to really start to show production, especially with somebody in Tyler Warren who's kind of the jack-of-all-trades type tight end. He's kind of good in every single area. He's solid with his big-time size and his physicality to play on the outside, but he's also shown solid speed to be able to run those shorter routes, run those drag routes, and get yards after catch. He's a big-time bully that can power through and truck through and potentially break tackles. He's also shown some real solid ability to be able to run block within the running game, which also helps with Jonathan Taylor running as well. I mean, the dude can kind of just do everything. You can even put him. Penn State did a lot. Put him in some wildcat type formations, and maybe putting him along with Anthony Richardson's height and athleticism. Putting A-Rich on the outside might not be the worst idea. But it just it made sense for the Indianapolis Colts. I'm going to give this an A plus, because it was their biggest need on offense. You get as many weapons as you can, and you get a dude that just overall is so versatile, can go anywhere on the field, outside, slot receiver, tight end, on the offensive line blocking. I mean, you could put him anywhere, and he is going to succeed. Then we move to Jalen Walker at 15, and I am very, very proud of Terry Font and the Atlanta Falcons, because they went defense, a team that has been one of the worst defenses in the league, especially tackling-wise. They go out and they get 2 edge rushers. We'll talk about James Pierce Jr. a little bit later, but they first get Jalen Walker, somebody who was one of, if not my favorite player within this draft. How are we doing for time here? 35 minutes, not too bad. Definitely going to be a little bit of a long episode, but I'm sure you guys don't mind that. But Jalen Walker was definitely my favorite player within this draft. The dude is just so versatile, is so athletic. You could put him on the inside. You could put him as an off-ball linebacker in coverage. You could put him as an off-ball linebacker or an edge rusher, rushing the passer, being in run stuff. He's really, really great job stopping the run. Can do that on the interior as well. I mean, the dude can just do it all. Very active hands, has very solid power and finesse moves, especially on that inside, going up against slower guards. I mean, the dude can just go everywhere. I understand that there is a little bit there are a couple people that are scared just because of his size at 6'1". I understand that, but the dude's speed, his overwhelming strength, I think overall should help him out. And especially in a defense with Atlanta where he is going to be a big-time star, they're going to be moving him everywhere. He's going to be able to play in every single position, and it's just going to make him even more unpredictable for offenses to be able to deal with. The dude is a beast. I thought he should have gone 8 to the Carolina Panthers, but you go out, you get him at 15. I think that that's pretty solid. A+ here for me. Really love to see the Falcons finally upgrading their defense. Then you move to the most troubling pick for me, and that is Walter Nolen at 16. Nolen has gone through a lot. He has gone through a lot throughout this process. He rose a lot because of his potential and some of his talent on tape. But then he began to fall a little bit for some teams because he has had some character issue concerns. He is the one that, if you did not know, he has moved to about 4 or 5 different high schools throughout his time in high school, and then he also, transferred between, I believe, 2 or 3 colleges as well. There's not really a lot right now as to why, but there is some real big time concern with that, and because of that, as well as the way that he relies a lot on his power, this pick reminds me a lot of Robert Nkemdiche, who I believe was drafted by the Arizona Cardinals in the first round, and I believe like 2015. It was either 2015 or 2016. I know it was one of those drafts. A very one-dimensional pass rusher who has some character concerns, and we saw with Nkemdiche, I believe he was with the Cardinals for about 2 years, and then he was off the team. So just a lot more concerns and negatives here than positives. Especially for a team in Arizona that I think could have added a more dynamic offensive threat. I had them going Matthew Golden at 16. I thought that his speed would have paired very, very well with Marvin Harrison on the outside. You also could have potentially gone running back here. I know that Connor has been solid for them, but he's definitely taken some hits over the course of his past few years in Arizona. I also think that defense could have potentially been there for them as well in terms of maybe a cornerback, maybe down the middle of linebacker. So I definitely just felt that there were bigger positions of need, and I don't think that this was the guy to really fill that position of need up with because of the character concerns, because of the one-dimensionality. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give this a C for the Cardinals. I hope that Nolen surprises me. I just have a lot of doubts of his playing ability and himself as a person. But I'm sure he's an amazing guy, and if I ever meet you one day, Walter Nolen, I'm going to ask you for an autograph for sure. Then we move to the Cincinnati Bengals at 17. Wanted them to go into the secondary, but I also talked about them getting an X-Factor type guy, a guy that could be a big-time, could be the name for your defense, the top guy. And they went with Shamar Stewart, and I think that's the dude that fits it perfectly. The dude is very, very raw as a pass rusher. I understand that. As an edge, he does not have a lot to offer as of right now. He gets caught a lot against stronger offensive tackles. He doesn't really do a great job off of his counter moves, so it's kind of one move and go with him. But the dude is such a great athlete. I mean, you can read this down here. Outstanding combine, best broad jump, 10'11", second best vertical jump at 40 inches out of all the edge rushers. 1.58 10-yard split, ranked third with a 4.59 40-yard dash. I mean, dude, you could go on and on and on. The dude has been talked about to be one of, if not the best athlete to ever show within the NFL draft combine. And so he is a project. He is somebody that you're going to have to work at with some skill. So hopefully, Cincinnati can hang on to a guy like Trey Hendrickson, who can potentially try to kind of mentor and teach Shemar Stewart some of those things, some of those ways to counter off of his first move and whatnot, and to create that quicker first step to come off to utilize his speed. Hopefully a team like Cincy is able to do it, because if they are, man, they have a dude that is going to be an all-pro level rusher. I really like Shemar Stewart. I am rooting for him. And while the statistics don't really show, the dude could potentially be a beast. I think he has probably one of, if not the highest ceilings out of any player within this draft. Now, that being said, he also potentially has one of the lowest floors. It's all going to depend on how well Cincinnati can really develop him. And if Trey Hendrickson goes out early, that is going to be a little bit of a real struggle, because teams are definitely going to be a lot more focused on him. But this is the type of guy that you draft when you need a big-time spark on your team, and that is what Cincinnati needs right now on defense. I'm going to rate it a B, simply because I like him. I like his athleticism. I even like where he's picked, but just the talent there is not there as of right now, and it's kind of up in the air of where he could go. So I'm going to rate this as a B. Like the athleticism, but the talent is a little bit low, but still love Shemar Stewart. Then you go for Gray Zabel at 18 to the Seattle Seahawks. Again, had Tyler Booker going to the Seahawks a couple of weeks ago at 18, and Seattle obviously saw that he was picked earlier, and they go with the offensive tackle that, in my opinion, is 100% going to be moved into guard. Now, Zabel did start a lot of games at North Dakota State as a tackle. You can see here 41 games over 5 seasons at left tackle, right tackle, but also started a little bit at left guard and right guard. The dude, 6'6", 312. As you can see here, that ESPN fires off the ball very quick, lifts defenders, and gets some push within the run game, effective at combination blocking and working up to the second level. So again, with a lot of these offensive tackles, they're just simply athletes. They're guys that are going to be able to get out into that second level, past the line of scrimmage, and pancake whatever linebacker or cornerback is coming their way. And especially for a team in Seattle who is just trying to build around Sam Darnold with the best possible situation that you have. Again, we've talked about it a lot. They saw Sam Darnold in Minnesota. They saw how many amazing offensive weapons, an okay offensive line that he had, an offensive head coach. And you go here in Seattle, and you have a guy like Kenneth Walker III who's been injured. You have Mike Macdonald, who is more of a defensive-minded head coach. You know, those are definitely a couple of negatives there to hit for Sam Darnold. So you need to be able to pick up that situation a little bit more. You now have 2 big-time receiving threats with JSN and Cooper Kupp, and you get who, you know, outside Tyler Booker is probably the second best interior offensive lineman in Gray Zabel. Like this pick for Seattle was definitely the right direction that they need to go. I'm going to rate it an A- for them. Then you go with another big-time surprise here, and that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going offense. I thought that this was 100% going to be a defensive player, especially off the edge. They need a lot of big-time help off of that edge rush. But they end up going Emeka Egbuka, and it was crazy to me to see Egbuka go in the first round and somebody like Luther Burden not go within the first round. Really shows you some of the questions with Luther Burden potentially going forward. But Egbuka is a good player. He not only serves as insurance for Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, who we have to accept, especially for Tampa Bay fans, that both of those guys are nearing the end of their tenures. They are nearing the end of their careers in the NFL. And so Egbuka is a guy that, as of right now, has really, really solid speed, can catch the ball really well in stride and be able to get some extra yards after catch. So is a guy that right now is your stereotypical slot receiver and is going to be able to play within that role with Evans and Godwin on the outside. But once Evans and Godwin are gone within, 2 to 3 years potentially, is a guy that's going to have some great mentoring by both of those guys. Those are both all pro level receivers. And is a dude that is going to be able to step right in, have some really solid experience, and be their number one receiver, their X guy on the outside. And hopefully by then they've built a little bit more insurance off of that. So I like the pick. Is it good on the short term? No, because you obviously like the defense to be upgraded. But again, you have so many different edge rushers in this class. I don't even think I mentioned it. Darius Alexander from Toledo is still available in this class on the interior defensive line as well. So you still have so much depth defensively in this class. Go out, get yourself some insurance for Baker Mayfield. Get a guy that could potentially be your future X type of receiver. You also have Cade Otton still on this. Bucky Irving just emerged. He's super young. So you're keeping this offense nice and young and built for the future. Like this pick for Tampa Bay. Again, for the short term, don't really like it, so I'm going to go ahead and give this a B, but definitely do not hate it. There hasn't really been a pick outside of Walter Nolan that I've really hated yet. Then we move to Jahdae Barron going to my Denver Broncos at number 20. And hopefully you guys have seen the reaction video. I'll go ahead and leave it likely at the in the bottom of this description. Also look out for some more reaction videos within the coming days, likely just to the second and third round pick for the Denver Broncos. Now I can't lie. At first I was very, very surprised. Obviously, at first glance, I really wanted Omarion Hampton. I would have even been fine with TreVeyon Henderson at this. I just felt that running back was such a big-time need for Denver, and you had first-round level talent running backs within this draft that you could fill that up with. But there's still running back depth within this. Receiver was a big need. There's still receiver depth in this. There's Luther Burden, Jack Betch, Jaden Higgins, Max Royals from Utah State, I believe, is still available. Tez Johnson is still available. And even at running back, you have Henderson, you have Judkins, you have Caleb Johnson, you have Devin Neal. Sean Payton said in his review of the draft class that he liked this running back class. So it was very clear now to me now that he meant more of the deeper side and the overall class itself to be able to go out and get a top guy within the third or fourth round with those picks. But coming back to Jahdae Barron, again, it was a little bit troubling, but thinking about it a lot more, Sean Payton doesn't do anything by accident. He's a very, very smart guy. He doesn't just go out and do random things. And really reflecting on the Broncos' past season, the darkest time of this season was definitely the 2 to 3 game period where we were without both Patrick Surtain and Riley Moss. Both of those guys got hurt. And as soon as those guys went down, this secondary was next to useless. Jaquan McMillan has been a liability forever. He is one of the guys on our team that I unfortunately just am not very fond of. I do not like him whatsoever. I did like some of the potential from guys like Chris Abrams-Durain, and I was kind of excited to see him kind of step up in a potential bigger role this year. So I'm hoping that he still is able to make the regular season roster and get some playing time on this team. But I think that George Patton and Sean Payton saw this and said, we need to have some big-time insurance if our two guys go down again. We can't just be okay with having two cornerbacks. And Jahdae Barron, in my opinion, is the best cornerback within this draft class as of right now. Sub 4.4 40-yard dash at the combine. The dude is more of your stereotypical slot receiver with shorter arms sitting at 5'11". But the dude is amazing athletically. He does a really great job in both coverages, both man and zone. He is a little bit better in reading the defense off of zone, which is good because I think that Denver could, with Riley Moss's lack of athleticism at some points, they definitely could lean to playing more zone defense. I don't think that that's where really Denver is really at their best, because I think that they play at their best blitzing the quarterback and playing press man, getting up to the receivers, which Barron can definitely do as well. But this also now allows them to be potentially flexible and playing some zone defense. It gives them some insurance and knocks down and gives them some big-time depth at corner. So, just playing, for example, if Moss gets hurt again, you now have Surtain, you have Barron, you have Chris Abrams-Durain, and then I guess if you want, you could have Jaquan McMillan at that fourth cornerback role. So overall, it just gives you much more depth at that position. And if not, you now have 3 great cornerbacks. You have Talanoa Hufanga. You still have Brandon Jones. You have P.J. Locke. I mean, this is a team that could potentially be looked at as the 2015 no-fly zone type of team if some of these guys can get developed. And even without injury, Riley Moss, when coming back from injury, played awful towards the end of that season. He was clearly pretty gassed. He was out of sorts trying to get back into the speed of the game. And so Barron is a guy, especially with his really solid speed, that could plug in to allow Moss or Surtain coming off of injury to have more recovering time and get back into it. So in the beginning, I did not really get it. I didn't really understand it. But overall, I think that it was a right pick overall, especially with how much of the depth that there is on offense. I'm going to go ahead. I originally gave it, I believe, a B or a B minus. I'm going to give this an A minus. I like the pick here from the Denver Broncos. Gosh, we have 12 picks left, and we are 50 minutes in. Big time episode for you guys here. Big time. I am absolutely tired. I need to drive home tomorrow early in the morning, but I'm trucking through. Going to try to at least get this all recorded for you guys and likely edited so that I can post it early tomorrow morning. But we moved to number 21 with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, all eyes were on this pick for Shedeur Sanders or maybe even a Jalen Milroe potentially going there. Neither ended up happening. The Steelers ended up going safe. They grabbed Derek Harmon here. Again, I just think that it was clear that these teams weren't secure with drafting those other guys in this range. And we've seen it before when NFL franchises don't feel secure in quarterbacks, they're not going to go after them. And in Derek Harmon, you do get a guy who is going to be added to a defense with guys along with, Patrick Queen, right? With guys along such as TJ Watt. And so now you have a very, very dangerous pass rush on the Steelers side. You're bolstering up this defense, which again, I think is what they're going to need to do because this offense isn't likely going to be firing as much with the lack of talent at the quarterback position, with Najee Harris being gone, and being able to rush down these top-heavy quarterbacks within this division. Again, it's just a big-time addition, and Derek Harmon can definitely be in that. Also think that he has some versatility to go on the outside as well. Does a really great job at invading those gaps. Again, solid pick by Pittsburgh here. I'm going to give them a B for this pick just because I feel like quarterback is such a big need for them, and I think that Shedeur would have fit perfectly here. Because I definitely do think that Shedeur is a first-round talent, especially at the end of this first round. That's where kind of more that I rank Shedeur Sanders. At the end of the first round, definitely thought that it was worth it, but clearly they went into a different direction. Then you have the LA Chargers, who stabbed me in the heart because not only do they get the player that I wanted, but they're also in our division. So they draft Omarion Hampton at 22. This was an interesting pick for me because obviously the Chargers signed Najee Harris, but we know Jim Harbaugh, man. We know Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman. They steer away from the wide receivers. There was no good tight end available, and they love running the ball. They lost J.K. Dobbins. They plugged in Najee Harris, and so now this gives them two running back potential. Not only two running back potential, but a guy in Omarion Hampton who could still serve as a wide receiver. Really great pass catching out of the backfield for Hampton. It's kind of your serviceable, more power back. So he's kind of more contradictory to Najee Harris, who I believe has a little bit more speed on him. But at 6 foot, 221, real power back that can truck through. Could be also potentially solid on the goal line. More diverse offense here for LA. And again, so many wide receivers in this draft that they could pick from later on. I mean, I think even having an offense of Ladd McConkey and like a Jaden Higgins, that would definitely be dangerous for Justin Herbert. And it was clear that the offense needs to continue to get better, especially with some of their losses. Hampton here. Again, it was more of a flashy pick, so I'm only going to rate it a B. I'm also going to rate it a B, I'll be honest, because I'm a little biased, and I was kind of mad that the Chargers ended up getting Omarion Hampton. But I think rated it a B. Hampton's a really great player. I think that this is around his value. Could they potentially have got him in the second round? Maybe, but I think that they also probably would have had to trade up for him. Like Hampton, just don't really enjoy the fit too much because I think that there were other areas that they could have gone to. Then you have Matthew Golden at 23. Love this for Green Bay. I had them going, I believe, Luther Burden in my mock draft, who Golden is very similar in which he is a big-time speed wide receiver, also somebody that could potentially play on the outside. But I said this with Green Bay in my final mock draft is they have an okay receiver room, but they don't have the top receiver. They don't have an X factor type receiver. You're hoping that Jalen Reed can potentially become that, but now they're hoping that Matthew Golden can become that. And I think that that's a guy with his speed potential. He's either going to pop or he's going to flop. It's the same situation that we saw with John Ross all the way back in 2018. How well is Golden really going to be able to perform? I mean, the dude was a really great player at Texas. Did he cross 1,000 yards? I'm not 100% sure on that. I don't want to say wrong stats. So, but I could be wrong by saying that he got 1,000 yards. But a sub 4.3, somebody who could play on the outside. You still have flexibility with playing Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs as your one. Maybe you could play Golden in the slot and allow him to be dangerous over the middle. And again, it just gives Jordan Love way more weapons to work with, which at the end of the day is never going to be a negative for an offense. So Golden, like him. I also think that this was around the value for him. I didn't really enjoy a lot of the mock drafts that had him going top 10, even top 12 and whatnot. I definitely thought that he was a latter first-round pick. He was a big-time riser. Like this for Green Bay. This is what I had them going. Just had them going for a different guy. Then I know that a lot of Vikings fans were a little bit disappointed because they ended up going Donovan Jackson 24. And they were disappointed because this was supposed to be a defensive pick, especially in a secondary that is very quickly aging and has some big-time holes, especially at the cornerback spot. But again, it was clear that the cornerbacks are just not rated highly. I had 5 corners going in my mock draft. There were only 2, and the first one went at 20, and the last one went at 30. So many of the top corners are still on the board, and it's going to be really interesting to see where they go. But even then, linebacker could have been in play, edge rusher likely. Nick Amanawari at safety was definitely a possibility. Malachi Starks was still available. Really surprised with how far he fell back. But they end up going with Donovan Jackson, somebody who doesn't have a ton of experience. 30 games at left guard, 9 games at left tackle, was kind of moved back and forth within that. Is another guy who's just very athletic, moves well, being able to reach the linebackers within that second spot. I believe he was injured, if I'm not 100% certain. But even so, guard was definitely a need for Minnesota. Plugging him in, on that left side next to Christian Darrisaw, next to Ryan Kelly is definitely going to be able to help them out and definitely prioritize that left side a lot more, especially with a pretty much rookie quarterback in J.J. McCarthy coming in, who had a lot of help in that Michigan offense. You need to give him as much help as possible. And now you have 3 solid offensive linemen within that left side. You have some really solid receivers. Again, cornerback and safety I think could be big time considered, and I think that Donovan Jackson could have been picked a little bit later. So that's why I'm going to give this a B- just because I don't think the value was as great, but still filling a position of need. Then the New York Giants make the trade up of the night, and I'm going to go ahead and try to look for this real quick. Come on, where you at? Where you at, Adam Schefter? Show it to me. We're getting there, guys. We're almost there. Night's almost over. I'm very tired. Giants are trading back up into the first round. But where was it? Here it is. So the Giants traded for pick number 25. They ended up giving from the Texans. The Texans ended up getting pick number 34, pick number 99, and a 2026 third-round pick, which I definitely didn't think was a lot to give up. Definitely didn't think that it was bad value for them. Basically just giving up 2 third-round picks at the end of the day for this because they weren't too far behind within that second round. What I did not like was who they picked, and I knew that this was a thing. There were talks about Jackson Dart being ranked a lot higher than Shedeur Sanders on a lot of people's draft boards, including the New York Giants. I just don't get it. I don't get how Joe Schoen can continue to make mistakes like this. I mean, maybe somebody can prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. If you can find a lot more positives to Jackson Dart than Shedeur Sanders, let me down here in the comments because I just don't understand the appeal with Dart. And when you had a guy like Shedeur Sanders, who is the most accurate quarterback in this draft, who I think still has a really solid arm, who I think manages the game very, very well, who has some really solid pocket presence, who did it without a running game and an offensive line. I mean, the dude is a first-round level quarterback. Dart isn't. He has an okay arm. The decision-making is poor. The accuracy is poor. I mean, just in every way imaginable. The only thing that he might have an edge over Sanders for is he is a little bit more athletic. And even then, I still feel like Shedeur Sanders' athleticism is being so overlooked and so underrated by so many people. The dude can still move. Now, Dart is a big-time playmaker at times. His poor decision-making does end up turning into booms, but it is boom or bust for him, really. When he's not hitting on those big-time plays, he is below average, if not poor. And taking him with number 25, I honestly, I just do not get it whatsoever. Now, luckily, he's not going to play this year. You have both Wilson and Winston who they sign, and he is going to have really great mentors in front of him and those two guys to be able to kind of, build him. Matt Miller has his pro comp as Bo Nix, and as a Broncos fan, I find that so disrespectful. Bo Nix at Oregon was levels above Jackson Dart. I mean, Bo Nix threw for what, 55 touchdowns at Oregon and got sacked 6 times. Dart, the dude seems to be a hard worker. He seems to want to win really badly. The dude has a big time spirit. But I don't know how else to say it, but just this was a very, very bad pick from New York. And one especially when you don't have the big time offense around them. Like, they don't have Travis Hunter. They weren't able to get Travis Hunter. So really you're working off of Malik Neighbors, Tyrone Tracy, and Andrew Thomas. That's it. And so maybe in the next couple of years and maybe in the next couple of rounds, even though now they don't have any of their mid-round picks, maybe they can start to get some more offensive talent. But with the lack of offensive talent and with the lack of talent with Dart, I just don't understand it, especially as high as 25. This was my worst of the night. Because they traded up for him and still picked him within the first round, I'm going to give this a D. I just don't get it, guys. I don't get it whatsoever. Then you had a back-to-back trade up as the Atlanta Falcons decided to trade up. I'm not sure if Schefter got it for here. Yes, he did. So the Falcons got the number 26 overall pick, and they also got the Rams' third-round pick. Meanwhile, the Rams got the 46 overall pick, so they actually moved back quite a bit. But they were able to get Atlanta's first-round pick from next year and a 2025 seventh-round pick, which is obviously this year. So a lot to move up, but if you're moving up 20 picks, I could definitely see. And especially because, again, hand clap to Terry Fontenot because he did the right move. He's completely beginning to revamp this defense. You now have both Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr. That's amazing. Now, Pierce is a little bit the opposite of Jalen Walker. Again, very comparable to Shamar Stewart, where he is much more of your prototypical athlete. You can see sub 4.5. He had the quickest 10-yard split of all the edges at the combine. So when you look at James Pierce's tape, he is really raw when it comes to being a power rusher, and that kind of plays to him a little bit more because he does have shorter arms as well. Shorter arms is just kind of a trend in this draft. But the dude uses his speed to his advantage. The dude is able to use his finesse moves and run outside of these tackles. He is very, very explosive, which could also play to his advantage of powering through tackles as well. He's just not as strong as them, likely. He's also okay at times in dropping into coverage. He's not Jalen Walker level. He's not Jahad Campbell level, but he's okay there, and he could definitely definitely hold his own in the coverage level, especially against slower tight ends where his speed definitely does take advantage. So I love it for Atlanta. I'm not really educated right now on the prospects for next year's draft, so I can't really say. But if this defense is able to explode and the offense can finally begin to get going with Penix under center, and especially with Raheem Morris being a defensive-minded coach, that pick shouldn't even really matter because the Falcons should be within the bottom half of next year's draft if they play this all right. Love it from Terry Fontenot. Like the trade up. Build what was the weakest part of your team. And I think that this is really great value. I'm going to give this an A for the Atlanta Falcons. And I think that they are one of the winners of this draft. Another big-time winner from this draft is the Baltimore Ravens because they surprisingly get Malachi Starks at number 27. Don't really understand how Starks was able to fall all the way back here. Don't really feel like secondary was the biggest big-time need for the Ravens. But, I mean, how can you pass on this guy at 27? And this gives the Ravens a bunch of versatility, whether it's playing Kyle Hamilton at safety, whether it's still playing him in that linebacker role. You can now play Malachi Starks at that linebacker role potentially. You could play him at slot corner. You could play him within the box. The dude is just a playmaker all around. He high points passes really well. He does not get lost in coverage. Big, heavy hitter. I mean, he at times does square up when he's tackling, so he does miss some tackles, but the dude is a heavy hitter, forces turnovers. He's just overall, he makes plays on the defensive end, and the Ravens are now looking scary. Giving this an A, I think that this is really great value. Tyleik Williams at 28, and I'm going to be honest, I'm going to be really short with this one just because Tyleik is not somebody that I know a whole lot of. Looking at ESPN's analysis, they go, this is perhaps the first true surprise of round one as Lions draft a player that was outside the first round boards from each of ESPN's draft analysis. Williams is a true nose tackle who is ranked as my number 49 overall prospect. He will give Detroit a big push in the run game and can be a two-gapping force that will keep guards from helping chip elite pass rusher Aiden Hutchinson. Which kept position? Okay. And then looking at pre-draft, he recorded 100 tackles, 18 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks. He's an outstanding run stopper. So he really just looks like a power-heavy nose tackle who's going to be able to attract attention to himself and potentially off Hutchinson, which is a good thing with Hutchinson coming off of an injury. I'm going to give this a C+, just simply based off the value. It doesn't seem like he was valued as a first-round talent. This is somebody that Detroit could have potentially gotten within the second round. I definitely think that could have been in play. So, again, I'm not going to comment a lot on this just because I don't know a lot of him and I don't want to be giving away false information. But, I mean, pass rush was a need for them. They go out and clearly get the guy that they wanted if this was a guy that wasn't first round rated and they went ahead and picked him there. So, Tyleik Williams, don't like the value here personally, but he serves his purpose, power nose rusher. And hopefully he can succeed. Then we get down to the final four picks. Josh Connolly Jr., offensive tackle for the Washington Redskins. Again, big surprise for me here. Definitely thought that the Commanders were going to upgrade their run defense as they had one of the worst run defenses in the NFL, and it's what cost them against the Philadelphia Eagles. But they go ahead and go up and end up getting offensive line, which I like. They traded for Laramie Tunsil. They have a really solid offensive guard on the inside. I can't remember at this name. Sam Cosmi, that's his name. And now you have Josh Connolly Jr., who, again, is a guy who is an athlete. He had the fastest 10-yard split, as you can see here, for the offensive lineman. So he has really big-time quickness. He does a really great job of getting into that second level. He's a guy that doesn't get beat a lot off of the initial rush and off of the counter rush, which is really good. So he does a really good job at mirroring what the defensive lineman really does. And to do that, put him opposite of Laramie Tunsil. You now have 3 out of the 5 offensive linemen protecting your franchise quarterback. This obviously also boosts Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler's stock. I can't really hate it. I had Josh Connolly going within the first round. I thought that he was highly valued here. He's also somebody that could potentially move inside with guard with his athleticism. Combination blocker. Can't hate it here for Washington. I'm going to give this an A- for them as well. Again, not many picks that I'm really hating here. Then you have Maxwell Hairston here at 30. Hairston ran the fastest 40-yard dash at 4.28 regardless of position at the combine, and his 1.5 second 10-yard dash, 10-yard split was also outstanding. He is another guy who is very, very undersized. He also has smaller hands and is a guy that is more of your prototypical zone type of corner. So, again, would have liked Will Johnson. I understand that the injury is kind of moving people off of him, but I think that Johnson executes better in both man and zone. I think that Hairston is a little bit more prototypical, and he's not somebody that's going to be able to play on the outside. So for that reason, I'm going to give it a B-. I just don't think that it fits to what Buffalo really needed, which was a number 1 type corner. I don't think that Hairston fits that mold. I think that he can be a number 2 at best, if not play within in like dime packages and deep zone packages within the slot potentially. But tremendous athlete right here. Definitely could see him going in the first round. Had him going within the first round, so can't really hate it. I just feel like that there was more talent at this position with guys like Will Johnson and even Siobhan Reval. Then the final 2 picks, you have Jahad Campbell going to the Philadelphia Eagles at 31. As Campbell said, the rich keep on getting richer. I had Campbell going within like my top 15, I believe. This dude was one of my highest risers in the draft. I really don't understand how Philadelphia continues to get guys like this. They continue to do this year after year after year. The dude is an absolute athlete. He can play off the ball. He's really, really great in coverage. He's going to be able to zone up really great against tight ends. He is so quick. He bends really, really well at the hip, is able to drive himself through offensive tackles and inside guards. He fills the gap. To me, again, like Jalen Walker, he has a lot more of that versatility where he can play outside, off the ball linebacker. He can play within the middle. He can flood the inside. I mean, the dude can just do it anywhere. To me, he's a top 15 type talent in the league. And the fact that they got him at 31, my goodness, the Eagles steal one again. This defense is and is going to continue to be disgusting for years to come. A+ for Philadelphia here at 31. And then finally, to end it off, we do not have building muscle after 60 days. We have Josh Simmons at 32. I had him going at 32, so I'm going to put my hands up and say I was right for that one as well. Simmons, in my opinion, without the injury, likely would have been one of, if not a top 2 tackle in this draft. The injury is just what really, really dragged him. But I think that this is really a big-time dream target for Kansas City, who lost Joe Thuney in a trade to the Bears. The dude can do it all. Big-time combination guy. Again, just another big-time athlete. 6'5", 317. Again, more of your prototypical tackle, a little bit longer arms than the rest. Is not a guy that is going to overpower you moving forward, but is not a guy that is going to be beat off the edge by a fast linebacker. So I think that's really going to be important, especially with so many of the edge rushers that are within the AFC West. Max Crosby, Nick Bonito, and whatnot. Khalil Mack. I mean, all of those guys just pose big-time problems. And, of course, the offensive line is probably the biggest need for the Chiefs, and protecting Patrick Mahomes is the number one priority. And falling to 32, I thought that this was right at where I had him. It's tough when you have 3 of your division rivals getting 3 really, really great picks. I have no choice but to rate it A. I really like it here for Kansas City. And that's it. An hour and 11 video, guys. It was a long one. But that's the beauty of the NFL draft. And it was a draft that I really didn't have a lot of issues with. While there were a lot of surprising picks, while there were a lot of picks that I didn't personally have, I didn't really have a problem with any of the picks that were really chosen. I think the only one that I really rated kind of low was Walter Nolan. I think it was just Walter Nolan, Jackson Dart, and Tyleik Williams. So, I mean, 3 for 32 with, questionable picks. That isn't terrible in my eyes. I think that all teams really made some really solid decisions for their franchises going forward. Really excited to see what goes down in the second round tomorrow. Where does Shedeur Sanders go? Where does Will Johnson go? Where do guys like Donovan Ezeuruku go? Darius Alexander? Where do these next quarterbacks like Jalen Milroe, Kyle McCord, Tyler Shaw, where do all those guys go? It's going to be another interesting and fun night. I absolutely love this time of year. I love seeing these draft boards coming out and seeing the draft in person. Man, it's just amazing. Let me know what you guys thought. What were your grades for the draft? What was your most surprising move? What was your favorite move? What was the pick that your favorite team made? Go ahead and let me know about all those. And what is your big-time prediction for tomorrow's second round? I'm going to join you guys tomorrow for that second round. I'm going to be giving my full post-second round and third round also analysis, where we'll pretty much just break down some of the big-time picks. We likely won't go into every single pick because that'll make it an extremely long video. But without further ado, guys, that's all I have for you guys today. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, please feel free to subscribe, leave a like, and comment down below, as well as share with your friends. All of our ads to all of our social medias, that being TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, are going to be down below in the description, and I highly recommend that you guys try that out. I'm going to go get some sleep, guys. I'm hopefully going to be traveling tomorrow back home, about 3-hour drive, so hopefully wish me luck that I can get through it. But without further ado, guys, I will see you guys on the next video. I appreciate you guys for all your support. Peace.